guys, welcome to another tutorial of Empire Z. So today I'm going to cover the troop types. So I've been getting questions like what type of troops that I need to build to be powerful. So again, that question we can answer in a different way. It's again subjective. As I always start in my videos to say, it depends on what type of game you play. Some guide can actually help you what type of troops you can build. So it's not as hard as you think, but it's how again you play the game. There are a few things that you can consider before you're building your troop type, so that it helps you to win the battles and to be more powerful in defending your enemies. Just to give you a quick intro to the troops, it's easy for decision making because there are only three types of troops: so infantry, vehicles, and demolition. And then the tiers like T1, T2, T3, T4, and the same go for advanced, same type of troop types, and then the tiers. So the question that we get is, okay, what type of troops do I make, like infantry or demolition or vehicles? And an extended question would be, if I choose to say go for infantry, is it building T1s better or T3s better than T4s, or is T2s? So that's another type of question. I also get questions like, what about infected troops? Are they good? Can we build more of those infected troops? Is that something that would help on a long run? And what about advanced troops? So I'm going to try to answer most of the questions. These are just a guide, so depending on the gameplay, it might change. You have to decide while you're playing the game. You would completely change. You have to completely change your strategy and build a new type of troops. In this region, for example, what I'm playing is region 20. In the start of the region, when it's like young, when it was young, we did see that it was a lot of infantry heavy. People love to make a lot of infantry troops. I've seen, like, those days it was T3 was like big thing. T4 was not even unlocked by a lot of people. And I've seen all the soldiers walking, and hence when commandos, people open commandos, I see tons and tons of infantry. The mid-level players that time who had not yet there, they started to build a lot of vehicles. So the early movers who got into the billion power, they had tons of infantry. And the second group, where thousands of people started to make more vehicles to counter the infantry attacks. So now, given that the second movers, or the late movers into this game who spent a lot, are now vehicle heavy, so now R20, the region 20, has become a vehicle heavy region. And then now, people who used to build infantry, now they're going back to demolition troops so that they can counter the vehicles. So it kind of changes the way you play the game depending on what troop types the other people are building. So what I've seen so far is, with a lot of leaders that you can have now with the cold freezer option in the infected pen, people are now balancing their troops with everything, so that when an enemy comes with a certain troop type, they deploy the right leaders, and they send the right troops. So just to cut short this whole thing, what I'm trying to say is, the troop type that you build changes and evolves depending on how your region evolves. So you got to keep up to date with your region, and then make sure that you have a right balance of troops to stay in the game. So the next thing that you need to look at is, depending on what type of player you are. If you are early player, don't spend a lot of money, and you're a small player and you're still trying to build up, I would suggest go for a lot of vehicles, because you need a lot of resource to build all your buildings, or your infrastructure and so on. So go for the T1s, which are good, because the T1 vehicles are good because they have good speed, so they can actually move faster. So you can go across the map and gather, and they can also gather more. So again, if you look at, for any gathering, vehicles is the best, because if you look at Zombie Dozer, it can take a load of 14, and nothing else can take that much of a load. And but the only drawback is the speed. It's really slow. If you're going to send a few Zombie Dozers across the map, it's going to crawl, and then it takes hours and hours to gather and come back. So if you are a very small player, you're just starting, or you're just building up, go for pickup trucks or armored jeeps and gather more so that you can build your infrastructure. And also, if you are starting small, I think you'll have heard this zillion times from your alliance members and your friends. Keep your troop count within the hospital limits. So what you kind of do is you gather, build a hospital. So once your hospital limit goes up, build more troops, and then keep doing that so that if you're getting attacked during a war, you can heal, because healing is much cheaper than creating a new one. So if you're a smaller player, go for tier 1, tier 2 vehicles, which is good for you to gather, and that would help you in the process of building your infrastructure. And if you're a mid-level player, I would say go with the type of troops that you would like. So I think the next the segment that I wanted to cover is for the mid-level players who are about 300, 400 million power, and the big players. You have to choose your troops depending on a few factors. So these are the factors that I would say you need to think about. The first thing is the leaders. The leaders that you have actually determines what type of troops you want to build. So if, for example, I have a dead bark, so that gives a 500% infantry attack. So it's no brainer that I should go and build a lot of infantry. But given that we have a lot of cold storage right now, so now you can have more different leaders, like you can have a vehicle leaders, or you can have a demolition leaders. Then you can actually spread your risk between all the troop types. So first thing is you need to choose the troop type depending on the leaders that you have that would actually complement. And the second thing that you need to think about is the resource that you hyper. I mean, you don't want to go and ask for trade all the time. So, for example, I'm doing a lumber here, and then in my second city, I'm doing metal. So that helps me to build a lot of infantry, and also food is something that I can get from buying packs. So food is easy to get. I mean, if you have a lot of lumber or your metal, you can actually always trade with food. So food is an easy commodity to get. So then I'll be focusing on infantry. So first thing is your leaders, and the second thing is what kind of resource you are good at. You need to build that type of troops, because it makes it easier to double, triple your troop count during the events. So that kind of answers like what type of troops that you need to build. And the next question that I get is, what is good, T1s or T2s or T3s or T4? So I'm trying to make a video on mixing the troops up. I mean, some people like to build all T4s because it gives you power, and it's definitely powerful. I do agree with that. So my theory in building troops is I don't do a lot of T2s because I feel T2s are good, but I haven't experimented. Maybe I should. But my way of building troops is I go heavy on T1 in my main account, obviously. So I'll go heavy with my T1 and T3s and T4s. I mean, I really love the T3s because the T3s are really inexpensive to make, and they are three-fourths powerful of compared to the T4s. For example, if you look at it, the power is 48, but if you look at the attack, it's about 4. And if you look at the T3s, it's about 3. So you get about 25% of the attack that a T4 would give. But the good thing about making T3s, it's inexpensive. The resource that you would spend on a T3 is probably half of what you would be spending for T4. If you are chasing power, obviously you can build T4s. But if you are low on resource and you want to build your troops, T3s are the best because you can easily replenish. It's not going to take a lot of resource. And why T1s? I mean, T1s are pretty good because you can use them for hitting ICs if you're helping your alliance. So hitting a T with T1s is always cheaper. And while you're replenishing your T1s, you do it during the train troops event. You will get some points and get some gifts. And when I send an attack out to hit some player, I usually mix it up with T1s and T3s and T4s. I will have about 50% T1s, and I'll have about 30% of T3s, and the rest is about T4. So why do I do this? So the game, the way the algorithm is written, from various experiments I've seen, which I'll also try to do that and post a video. So when you hit an opponent, you will actually lose your T1s first because they are the weakest. So because if you look at the defense of T1s, it's about one, so they're going to lose pretty fast. And then goes T3s and then goes T4s. So when you hit with your big troops, you're going to lose a lot. So what I do is I mix it up so that the first thing to die is T1s, and then it'll allow my T3s and T4 to fight the battle, and I would actually get a little bit of advantage there. And I mean, as you know, T1s are really, really easy to replenish. And the opponent might think he killed a lot of my troops. So if I send a million in my march, or 750, whatever is the troop count that you're sending, a lot of T1s would die, and the opponent might think, yes, I killed a lot. But if in reality he just took two times one power from my T1s, whereas he would have lost a three or four T4s in the process. Net net, I kind of win because I take more power out of my enemy. Uh, so T1s, T2s, and T4s. My suggestion is build a good balance between T1s, T3s, and T4s. I haven't done the T2 experiments yet, but if you think T2s are better T1s, do go for it. But just mix it up when you're attacking and see how that works. You will get a sweet spot on mixing it up. It might be 50, 30, 20, or it might be 40, 40, 20, whatever is the mix. But the idea is to lose a lot more T1 in the process while you're taking more power out from your enemies. And also, a good thing about T1s is that the more T1s you have, if somebody attacks you, the hospitals get filled with T1s first. And what's a good thing about T1? I think by now you would know that speed T1s, when you heal, they go instant heal. So you don't have to wait. You don't have to spend speed ups to heal your T1s. And if you are an online player, if you're online during your war, if somebody attacks you, your T1 dies first, and then they go and actually fill the hospitals. And then if you have the resource, you can actually heal the T1s instantly so that you don't have to spend the speed ups. And what happens the moment they keep hitting you, and the opponent T4s or T3s will keep dying, and all you got to do is to heal your T1s, which is a good thing to do, right? So that's why I always say T1s, T3s, T4s have a good mix. So just to summarize, the decisions how you make, depending on a player size, you got to decide what kind of troops you want. And if your leaders are good, so just complement your leaders with your troops, and vice versa. You need to have the troops that would help your leaders and so on, and the resource that you hyper. So these are some of the pointers that you have to think when you build the troops. And the two topics that I said I'll be covering today is infected troops and advanced troops. What are these infected troops? Is that good? Something that we want to do? I would say, yeah. I mean, some people hate infected because it gives a false sense of being powerful. It gives 64 power for each elite. It's when you get hit, the elites die fast, and you would lose power fast. So the faster you build the power, you lose it even quicker. But one good thing about elites and infected is they are good against walls. And a lot of people, when they use the regular troops, like your infantry or demolition troops, you would lose a lot more because the walls are hard to break sometimes. And you build some elites with you so that it can elites or runners or whatever the infected is, depending on your size, that would help you to take the walls down, especially when they have a kurgan or lockdown. It's going to take a lot of load of troops that you need to send to take the walls down. So have some infected troops for you to help with the walls. And then once the walls are down, it's so easy to break another person down. It's the walls that drags the battle long. So you can actually cut short your battle time by using some elites. But keep in mind that the more elites you use, you're going to lose more power. But at the end of the day, it's all worth. So you can actually kill the enemy faster. And in the early stages, I've heard people doing something called shambling that would actually make people annoying because there'll be a billion player who is sitting right next to you, and then what you would be doing is and making like millions and millions of shamblers, because shamblers are not going to cost a lot to make. and you can. I have seen people made like 15 million shamblers, and all they do is they just keep sending shamblers to hit the big player. It's kind of annoying, but it does a lot of damage. So at the end of the day, net, if somebody is like really resource constrained and speed up constrained, they do shambling. I'm not seeing shambling anymore in the region, but there's something that you could try. So infected troops, again, depends on how powerful is your enemy with the walls and so on. Some people hate it, some people love it. I kind of have in between in the balance. I think that we definitely need some infected troops and with a mix of other troop types. And the last topic is on the advanced troops. How good are the advanced troops? Is it good? What I've heard so far, they are fantastic. I think Ember is trying to make people to build more advanced, because building advanced troops is not easy. It's not cheap. You got to buy a lot of packs, and each pack, when you get advanced speed ups, it's very expensive. For $100, you get about probably a worth of 17 days worth of 18 days worth of advanced speed ups, which will get you probably about 100 or 150,000 troops in advance. So if you see somebody has a million advanced troop, either they've actually bought tons of advanced packs, or they actually build during the night. So usually I do before I go to sleep. I just build some advanced troops. So far, what I heard is advanced troops are good, especially the Panzers. So the Panzers actually work well with your Heartbreaker and Shadow Stalker. A couple of Heartbreakers and a couple of Shadow Stalkers can actually kill the enemies faster. I've seen screenshots online that's been circulated when a person with Panzers, with Shadow Stalker and Heartbreaker sent about 1 million Panzers against 14 million troops, and the opponent lost about 1.2 million troops in one hit, and that's a good result. But I did a math. I mean, most of the time you don't do the math, so you actually see the number of troops. I mean, psychologically, everybody thinks, "Wow, I've got 1 million troops." In reality, the other guy would have lost, say, a mix of T3s and T1s and T4s. Net, he might have lost like 20 million power, but 250,000 of Panzers would cost you like 25 million in power, plus your advanced speed ups, which is very hard to come by and expensive. Again, it depends on, if you are rich and you are spending a lot of money on advanced troops, is the best way to go, because it kills the enemy faster. But it also gives a psychological advantage over the enemy, because losing 1 million troops by the enemy, they would be devastated. Again, taking 1 million out, most of the hospitals, I have never seen more than 1 million. So what you're trying to do is getting 1 million first, and every hit you send after the first hit, the troops will die. So the other guy has no chance to recover from that hit. So that's another thing about advanced troops. I'll cover another topic again on advanced troops, different types of advanced troops, and what are they good and bad, pros and cons, etc. But for now, I think this is something that I wanted to share with you on what type of troops you should build, and while making the decision. So hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions or comment, please leave, and I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.